I'm really happy you clicked on this video because if you understand in any amount what I'm about to share, you're about to tap into one of, if not the most important understanding or set of understandings in the human kingdom and in the entire universe. And that's a bold claim, but I stand by it. Because what we're about to dive into is the Law of One. And for those of you not familiar with the Law of One, the Law of One is a series of teachings that was brought forward by the collective consciousness known as Ra in the mid to late 1970s and 80s, or you could say mid to late 20th century. And it was carried out by a group of pioneering researchers who were trying to understand the human potential and understand how consciousness could be used as a communication device and what role our own consciousness plays in the experiencing of reality and the way that we experience it. So Ra is essentially this collective of super intelligent beings that have become so realized in the Law of One that they have become a collective consciousness due to the amount of experiential integration they have of the fact that everything in the universe is in fact one being. It is all sourced from one source. And what Ra calls that one source is... That's a really ugly... It's a really ugly circle. Okay, we're gonna do the writing first and then we'll circle it. The one infinite creator. So, before anything that we know as reality existed, we existed in a state of timeless, realityless, pure nothingness, but within that contains infinite possibilities. So that's why zero is actually the same thing as infinity, because they're both representations of the Law of One, which is that there is one source that contains infinite probabilities and infinite possibilities. And so we all come from this one source, isn't it obvious? We all have the same inner feeling of I amness. We all answer to the same name beyond our given names. We all have that innate sense of I amness, that intelligence. So that's just one way that you can experientially tap into the fact that we all come from one source. But this one source has, in its infinite oneness and its infinite nothingness, has no way to know itself because it is all that is. It is the source of all creation. And so, in order for infinity to have a foundation upon which it can build experience, there needs to be an experiencer, right? It makes sense. If you want to have an experience, you must first have something to receive that experience, because there can't just be a free-floating experience out there, because experience implies by definition that there must be an experiencer to have the experience. It makes sense, right? So what the one infinite creator did, the source of you and me did, as it is infinitely intelligent, is created the first distortion, as Ra calls it in the Law of One, of the one infinite creator. So The first distortion awareness. The very fact that we have the ability to experience is thanks to the fact that we are aware. If we weren't aware, there would be nothing to be aware of. Makes sense, right? The reason it's called a distortion is because the one infinite creator, before anything was created, was in a perfect timeless space of infinite possibility and perfection. And so the distortion refers to kind of the prism effect. You're taking something from its original state and you're turning it into something that is kind of, a transformation or the fruit of that. So it doesn't have anything to do with the value of awareness. It's not saying that awareness is distorted. It's just saying that it is a fragmentation of the beyondness of the one infinite creator. So awareness is also inherently perfect, but this is just Ra's language to describe the first creation. You could replace distortion with the first creation of the one infinite creator was awareness, because we had to have that underlying field to even have experience. So the second distortion is love. You may have heard Einstein talk about at the end of his life, or he didn't talk about it, but in his journals, he recognized that perhaps the unifying force of the universe that he had been searching for throughout his scientific career was in fact love. That love was the unifying principle, and he was spot on, because awareness is the playground upon which experiences can be had, but the drive of the one infinite creator to know itself is the pure essence of love, because there's nothing, like I said before, I actually don't remember if I said this before, but the desire to know oneself, the desire of the one infinite creator to know itself through these multiple points of view that we call our individuated consciousnesses, is the primordial love. It's the original love. It's the creator desiring to know itself. So love is what makes things happen. It's like the fuel for the engine. And that's still not enough, because how can awareness be aware of anything if there's nothing to be aware of besides awareness? I mean, awareness could be aware of awareness, and that's very profound, but in order for the one infinite creator to have the experience of a physical world, we have to have light. What color would be good for light? Let's go with purple. Third distortion. Light. So, these are the three ingredients right here that make up all of experience: awareness, love, light. And I will often refer to them as the same thing, and when I talk about awareness, I think that everyone can safely insert into that definition of awareness, love, light, because it really is all part of the soup that is necessary for experience in this individualized way to take place. So, Why is it important to know this? Well, first of all, this is the law of one. This is you being one with everything. As if that weren't enough. There's so many sub-implications of this, but if you stop your thoughts for a moment, just recognize what's there. Is it not awareness? It is awareness. And this is true for every single human being, plant, animal, rock in the universe. When everything that can possibly be swept away is swept away, what remains is awareness. Awareness is the only thing that is. Awareness, love, light, that is. The physical world has no existence as a physical world. It has existence as a mirage-like illusion created by the interplay of light, and love within awareness. And this might be a little bit difficult to follow, but I encourage you to follow because the implications of this are so huge and will make you so happy if you fully understand them, or even 1% understand them. I don't fully understand this. Let's be totally clear. I haven't fully understood or integrated this by a long shot. But I know enough to teach it, to teach what I know, and in teaching it, I'm also learning a lot, so it's just a win-win all around. But you can take this, if you trust me, you can take this as fact, because science in its Newtonian ways has not yet proven this, but 100 years or maybe 300 years down the line, it will be common knowledge for everyone to know that we all emanate from one source, and that these are in fact the only 3 ingredients for existence. And if you look up pioneers of this kind of high-level, high-dimensional physics, such as Nikola Tesla, and specifically, if you want to read something really good for free online, Walter Russell wrote something called The Secret of Light, which is taking excerpts from the Divine Iliad, which was a channeled writing from ancient times that is super accurate, and he interprets that with his own super advanced knowledge of quantum physics and vibrational physics and all of that stuff. I don't even know if that's an official term for a branch of physics, but you know what I'm saying. Robert Lanza has awesome stuff about how consciousness is the basic building block of reality, but that's mainly what we're talking about. Consciousness emanates from the one infinite creator. Awareness means consciousness. We all emanate from one source, and this field in which this whole play takes place is awareness. Awareness, love, light. And so, how does this relate to channeling, and how can we take these principles and apply them to what we know about channeling to understand that channeling is actually real and possible? Well, good question. So, here, I'm going to erase this. Essentially, when you're channeling, this is what's happening. You have the one infinite creator, which has, through awareness, fractalized itself into 2 or more beings. Let's say 2 for now. Say you have a little flying saucer. Close enough. You got a little alien in here. Very stereotypical alien. Yeah. controlling this little flying saucer. And then you've got our Earth right here. Yay, Earth. And that's what Earth looks like, right? So we've got a little human chilling on Earth. Okay. So, how is it that two entities at separate parts of the universe could communicate without any form of visible technology? Well, you have to understand that awareness itself is a technology. Awareness slash consciousness. Awareness consciousness is a field. It's not just nothing. I mean, in the eyes of the one infinite creator, it's nothing, it's an illusion. But in the eyes of the fractals of the creator, awareness consciousness is the matrix in which all of reality takes place. So this is actually a matrix which operates through the language of light, which is a language of vibration. And this is very much intertwined with physics. Spirituality is high-level quantum physics. And so what actually is happening is we can tune our brains to specific frequencies. So when you're sitting in meditation and you're breathing deeply and you've opened your belief system up to the realization that channeling is possible because consciousness is the foundation of reality, then you're breathing deeply, your belief systems are unlocked, so there's no resistance to the idea of channeling, or at least very little. And you're moving yourself into that state of peak performance, which is represented by joy, bliss, happiness, etc. You could actually say you're always channeling different states of vibration, but for the sake of the type of channeling that we're talking about here in terms of communication with another portion of the creator, we're going to say that channeling takes place in the gamma state. It's the gamma brainwave state, which is represented by, for example, athletes at peak performance, you when you're in the zone doing whatever you like to do. For me, it's making music, for example, when I'm just lost in the flow and hours fly by in what seems like 20 minutes. Then that's an example of channeling. And so what's actually happening is when two entities or more have the intention of connecting to each other in a telepathic way, how this works is that this alien over here, which most aliens are highly benevolent and much more evolved than humans, so they exist at a level of reality that is a much higher vibration. They're like very, very high frequency vibration, and we're somewhere like wow, 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 wow. You know? So we have to increase our vibration, and they have to decrease their vibration in order to meet in what's called a resonant chamber of consciousness. And this has to do with, again, vibrational physics, where like frequencies can communicate with each other. We see this in radio waves, where if you tune a radio to a certain frequency, it's able to receive that frequency from the radio tower. In this case, our brains are the radios, and the radio tower is consciousness. So we tap into the field of consciousness, which we are always actually tapped into. It's who we are. And we go into a state of meditation with the intention of connecting to this entity, and they probably have the intention of connecting with you too. And you tune your vibration to somewhere in the middle, like and so you're tuning yourself to this frequency up, they're tuning down to this frequency. And these two fractals of the one infinite creator are then meeting in this resonant chamber where their vibrations line up, and then this communication between the two individuations is able to flow. And what's actually vibrating is the field of consciousness. You have to get it through your thick skull that consciousness is the matrix that underlies all of creation. You can't have atoms, you can't have bosons, you can't have electrons without awareness, because awareness / consciousness is the very, very first thing that must exist before experience of any kind can take place. So, that's how channeling works. There's not much more to say than that. So, you meet in this resonant chamber of consciousness, and then the entity that you're co-creating with is sending over these thought forms. They're saying, I love you. I love you. And then that is being registered by your consciousness, which is the same consciousness as theirs. That's really the catch here, is that you're really talking to yourself. All of the skeptics were right when they say you're just, bringing forward some part of your own subconscious, and that in a sense is true, because in the framework of consciousness being the basic underlying field of reality, then yes, you are just connecting with another portion of yourself, because every single thing is you. You are everything. You are everything. So, then you from this resonant chamber get this thought form transferred into your little puny human brain, and you get, I love you. And maybe the heart looks a little different, because human consciousness is bound to distort the transmission of this communication to some degree, because our energies aren't perfectly aligned to the one infinite creator, otherwise we wouldn't even be physical. On some level they are perfectly aligned. I'm not saying we're imperfect in any way, but just to say that we as humans are bound to make mistakes, and we're bound to exist at a level of vibration that is very far away from the original state of vibration, and that's all perfect because it's by design. We have this lower vibrational experience because that's what we wanted as the one infinite creator. And so this is how channeling works. A resonant chamber of consciousness that is actually the field of awareness that is all that is, which is resonating at the same frequency from two different points of view, and then those 2 points of view are able to become one communicative hub in which information can be shared in a seamless way. And you could check out Bashar, Abraham Hicks, the Seth material. I highly recommend the Raw material, which is where this verbiage comes from. So the Raw material. If you search therawmaterial.com, then you'll find a vast amount of knowledge on every possible subject you would want to know, channeled directly from a collective of entities like this dude right here, who don't all look like this, but I'm being stereotypical. Let's just say a group of aliens that are all existing at a much higher vibration than we are at this human level. And so their information is very pure, very precise, and I highly recommend it. I completely support it, and I see it as fact. So, yeah, that's what channeling is. If you want to know how to channel, I'll just briefly break it down for you in like a minute. First, you must have the intention that you want to connect with whatever kind of being you want to connect to, be that a service to others type entity or a service to self type entity. Service to others being based in love and compassion and wanting to serve other portions of the one infinite creator, or a service to self entity, which is a portion of the one infinite creator that is serving the creator by serving itself, because we're all the creator. But I highly recommend setting your intention to connecting with a being in your soul family, you could say, or your higher fractalized consciousness, which is of a service to others nature. That way you avoid all of that kind of like sketchy, weird, hurtful kind of communication where beings try to convince you to go like do shit that you probably don't want to do. So just be mindful that it's important to set your intention to connect with a service to others type entity, and to make that the only connection that you are willing to have in this channeling format. The second step is to go into the gamma wave state, which I tap into by picturing the set of circumstances that would most light me up in the moment. Like, if right now I just imagine myself falling through the sky, for example, it just completely shifts my energy and I'm just like, whoa! And I can already feel my brain waves changing. And the more you sit with this in and out breathing, and you've got your intention set, and you're just putting yourself into the highest possible vibration that you can be in, before long, within a matter of minutes, you'll be in the gamma state vibration. Then all you have to do, which is probably the most vital step besides the intention setting, is, and breathe, I mean, they're all vital, what am I saying, is you have to empty yourself out of your individual little ego and zoom into the awareness of yourself as awareness, love, light, consciousness. So if you watch my video on how to know yourself as everything, I basically walk you through that step by step. So check that out if you want to know the last step of channeling the way I do it. And yeah, for the sake of time, I'll just send you to that video instead of explaining it again here, because I think this has already gone on quite long. And I thank you if you've made it all the way here, because recognizing yourself as not just this little me, but also as awareness, and from there, once you're very grounded in this, even contemplating in that state of pure awareness, that formless state, what was even before this, and penetrating into the one infinite, is the ultimate love. It's actually the only path of fulfillment that exists in my perception. And that might be, you could pick at that statement and kind of maybe find it disagreeable, but in my experience, the only true form of happiness that one can realize is the happiness of knowing oneself. As knowing oneself as one with the all, as the one infinite creator. Because everything that appears within the bubble of awareness consciousness is fleeting. It appears and it disappears, and it appears and it disappears, and it appears and it disappears. And that's no way to sustain happiness, because if your attachment and your happiness becomes bound to the wave appearing like this, be that the dope relationship or the dream job or whatever, that eventually is going to subside. The dream girl is going to die or whatever. The job, you're going to get eventually too old for it, and then your entire identity and your entire happiness will have been wrapped around something that is impermanent. And the only thing that never changes is the one infinite creator. So, by definition, the only way to find lasting happiness is by going up the very long and arduous ladder from mini-me, from this guy, to knowing yourself as everything. And that's an infinite journey that will refine itself forever and ever and ever. And it's a beautiful thing, because the more you absorb yourself in this and this, the more that the physical world becomes a dream within consciousness, and it's not so serious and it's not so scary, and your happiness is not tied to this mirage of light and love and awareness that is constantly changing. So that's it for this really densely packed video on the Law of One. We covered the basic structure of reality, what reality is made up of, the three basic components. We covered how understanding those three components can help us understand how channeling is possible, how telepathy is possible, and how we can find lasting happiness from knowing ourselves as our actual selves and not the ego construct that we have, which tells us that we're just a physical brain within a body, which is only the tip of the iceberg, my friends. So, it's been a pleasure to dive into this with you. Thank you for providing me with a space where I can learn more of these realizations by sharing them with you, and for suspending your doubts and letting me, bring my perspective forward in hopes that you may also recognize this truth within yourself and begin your more coherent and precise journey towards lasting happiness. So, I love you all, I thank you, and I'm out.